Good afternoon. Welcome to this very important workshop organized by Urban Design Research Institute in collaboration with all the colleges of architecture in Mumbai to enlighten us on this very important act, RERA. We have with us Mr. Gautam Chatterjee, who is a very distinguished retired officer of the Indian Administrative Service of Maharashtra cadre. He's a gold medalist in MSc in Mathematics from Patna University. He also holds a postgraduate diploma in urban planning and housing from a very reputed Institute of Housing Studies, Rotterdam, the Netherlands. In his illustrious career spanning over 33 years, Mr. Chatterjee has held several important assignments, both in Government of Maharashtra and Government of India. Notable among them being the Collector of Ratnagiri, Additional Municipal Commissioner of Mumbai Municipal Corporation, Joint Director General of Foreign Trade in the Ministry of Commerce, CEO of Maharashtra Housing and Area Development Authority, CEO of Slum Rehabilitation Authority, Officer on Special Duty of Dharavi Redevelopment Project, Principal Secretary, Maharashtra Housing Department, Joint Secretary, Navy and Ordnance in the Ministry of Defense, and Director General of Shipping in the Ministry of Shipping. After his superannuation, he served as officer on special duty to the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Tasked to set up Maharashtra Real Estate Regulatory Authority, MahaRERA. He is presently chairperson of MahaRERA. As you all know, housing is a very important issue affecting the life of all the citizens, and housing has been his main area of concern. And throughout his career, he has given his best, and he is one of those rare IAS officers. And I personally feel that you could not have asked for anyone better than him to introduce to us all the pros and cons of this very important MahaRERA act that we have brought in to improve the quality of our built environment in so many different ways. So without wasting any further time, may I request Mr. Gautam Chatterjee to deliver his address on this important issue. Mr. Gautam Chatterjee.
Thank you, Mr. Akhtar, for those kind words. Distinguished dignitaries sitting here and all my young friends, ladies and gentlemen. This is something which I have been longing to do, talking about the whatever I understand of the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act to young professionals like you. And I'm thankful to All India Institute of Local Self-Government and Pankaj in particular for making this happen. What I'll do is I'll quickly run you through a presentation that I have, which captures the essential features of this act, and also tell you in brief what has been the experience in the implementation of the Act, because we are now in the second quarter of implementation of the Act. It came into effect from 1st May 2017. And then certainly I would expect that it will generate a lot of interest in our young minds, and they would have a lot of questions to us. So I would certainly like to spend some time in responding to the queries and questions that you have. Now, can I have the next slide, please? So, as I mentioned, this is the new Act which first came into effect from 1st May 2016. But then it was only few sections of this Act, which has 92 sections overall, which were activated, essentially because the Act required a lot of things to be in place before it becomes fully operational. Now, as you know, housing is a sector which is in the concurrent list of the various functions that a state and a center should tackle. So this being in the concurrent list, the government of India decided that they should come out with an act, which would be a central act. And like in the transport sector, there'll be statewide rules for the implementation of the act, and every state will also have a regulatory authority which will further implement the act. Now, a brief background to what was the thinking in Maharashtra. Maharashtra has been one of the most progressive states as far as trying to bring in some sort of a regulation in this sector is concerned, because way back in 1963, Maharashtra enacted the MOFA, the Maharashtra Ownership Flats Act. And if one reads the preamble of MOFA, MOFA's preamble also is more or less similar to what is the preamble of this act. And that preamble was that there are sundry abuses, malpractices in this sector, and there is information asymmetry. Information just does not flow down to the consumer who is paying for his apartment and his flat. And to curb those, MOFA was enacted in 1963, which talked about how to bring in transparency and how information dissemination should take place to various stakeholders. But one thing that did not happen in MOFA was that the implementation mechanism of MOFA was little weak, in the sense that if the various provisions of MOFA were not adhered to by the ones who were supposed to adhere to, then where does one approach for redressal of his grievance? Now, that was the weak point. So the matters of violation kept on piling in civil courts and consumer courts, and justice delayed is justice denied. That is how people lost faith in the various provisions of MOFA. MOFA, as I mentioned, certain provisions of MOFA and this act, how are they similar? Because both of them talked about that basic details of the project needs to be put out in for the consumer. Difference between the two now is that talked about put out the information to the consumer who is trying to buy an apartment from you. This says put out the information in public domain. Huge difference, of course, because there, how it was being violated, that the information that is supposed to be given to the consumer by the developer is flouted, and the consumer keeps on struggling to get the information out of the developer and doesn't get it. Whereas here, he doesn't need to talk to the developer or his various cronies to get information out. All the information is out in the public domain. So, excellent, robust use of information technology to see that all information which should be out in the public domain is out there. And the various other things regarding how an agreement for sale should be signed, what should be a timeline for a project to get completed, leading up to the completion, and after the completion, how a legal entity of the entity of the allottees or the buyer should be formed, and thereafter how the conveyance of title should take place, and also maybe some if there are defect liability for certain period. So all these aspects of MOFA are aspects which are also covered here, which I'll briefly run you through. Why I went into this background is that the 63 Act was there. 63 Act was not solving the issues which were listed out in the preamble. So the government in 2011-12, when I was the Housing Secretary, came up with the Maharashtra Housing Regulatory Act. And it got enacted also in the sense that the Assembly, both the houses passed it, and it went to the President of India, because as I mentioned, any subject in the concurrent list must get approved by the Government of India. It also received the presidential assent, but before it could be activated and enacted in the sense that the implementation could be started, Government of India, this new government had come in, and they felt that no, let's have one central act, and we will ask the different state governments to enact the rules in accordance with the act, rules, regulations, and setting up the authority. So 1st May 2016, the act came into effect, and it gave 1 year time to the respective states to enact the rules, to set up the authority, and keep everything ready, so that by 1st May 2017, all the 92 sections of the Act will be activated. From 1st May 2017, all the 92 sections have been activated, but it has been seen that there are a large number of states who have still not done those initial exercises which were supposed to be done. Notably among them maybe Goa, West Bengal, and various other states, even I think Bihar. But then Maharashtra went ahead, it established the authority, it went ahead and then promulgated 5 draft rules which also got finalized after taking objection suggestions from various stakeholders. Next please. And also notified the 2 regulations. The regulations were notified by the authority. Since the authority was put in place in March itself, the authority also started on the regulation, which is the subordinate legislation, the 3rd level of legislation, the Act, the rules, and the regulations. You would have seen on the last slide, we also have the website address of MahaRERA, where all the information and everything that I'll be talking about is available. It will come again in the next slides. Now, the Act also provided that, so there are these 2 sets of regulations also. The Act, the 5 rules, the 2 regulations, all these things are available in the website in a downloadable format. So we have tried to see that all the information, because basically the Act's basic tenet is transparency and information asymmetry to be removed. So all the information which we feel should be available to the public at large, we have tried to put it out there. Now, in addition to that, we also had one thing very clear in our mind, that the implementation of this Act should be done on a digital platform, because whole lot of information that will flow into the office of the MahaRERA. We call ourselves MahaRERA because it's Maharashtra RERA, and we coined MahaRERA because it also coincides with the 1st May is the Maharashtra Day. So we felt that we have the first right on RERA. So that's why we felt that let's coin a term MahaRERA, and we have our logo also. Some of the advertisers also have been putting out this logo. So most of them, they do not do it. And but then, be that so. So we were clear that the implementation of the Act right from day 1, which will be 1st May 2017, should be on a digital platform. So well in advance, we had Maha Online, which is a joint sector company of Maharashtra government and the TCS, which worked on this software. And we had KPMG as our knowledge partner. So basically the 3 of us, I was appointed as a single member authority then. So 3 of us then worked on this, and then we formulated these rates which will be applicable, because on a revenue basis, the Maha Online worked on the software. We did not have to give any capital outlay for them. They worked from their own resources, and they said that we will be along with you for the O&M also of the software that we are creating. And these will be the rates. So these are the rates that are charged to every person who approaches the website for either a registration or filing an online complaint. Next, please. As we started implementing, we were also on this learning curve. Essentially, it's a new Act, new regulatory setup. Everything is brought under a new regulation. Now, while we implement, we have to also understand that it should regulate and also promote and develop. So the sector, being such an important sector and major contributor to the employment of the country and the GDP, should also not slow down. And ultimately, if it slows down, then it ultimately affects the consumer, because if the supply side gets constricted, it's the consumer only who will, I'll say, again have to bear the loss. So we were very clear in our mind that while doing or implementing this, there might be need for many clarifications and orders. So this is in the last 3-4 months, as we were doing this process of implementing the Act. These are the things that we actually had to do. If there are questions on this, what is co-promoter and all that, I'll come to that. But otherwise, these are basically some of the orders that we have issued. These are also available on the website. Next, please. A clarification on the calculation of carpet area we felt was necessary. So with proper diagram and all, we have put it out. I don't know how many of you would have had a chance to visit the website to see all these things. None. Oh, that's quite surprising. Oh, only two of you. But I thought being important player in this sector and on whom the government puts a lot of importance to see that this act gets implemented in the correct spirit, you are one of the three professionals. The whole implementation of the act and to keep a proper check on delinquent developers has been put on architects, engineers, and chartered accountants, and of which I feel architects are the most technically qualified professional when we talk about this thing. So I would request you that before you go to bed tonight, you must visit this website and try and find out whatever I have mentioned as to the things that are available on the website. At least go into the website today. You'll not be able to go through all the provisions and all the things that have been put out there. But then over a period of time, please, my request would be to go into that. So all these things we have put out there. Carpet area was necessary because essentially this act is empowering citizens to make choices about a buy decision, a decision to go ahead and invest in a property, whether it is a residential or a commercial or an office space, not depending on anyone else who comes and tells him that I know this developer, he's good, why don't you go and buy it here? Or some real estate agent who comes and says that I have been doing this work for many people and they have not got cheated, and I assure you that you'll get a best buy. Here, by use of IT, all this information, good 13,000 projects in the state of Maharashtra, majority of them, of course, being ongoing projects and about 1,000 of them being new projects, are all out in the public domain with information of last 5 years of the credibility of the person who's implementing the project as to how he has delivered his project in the last 5 years, to the current project that he's implementing, what are the salient features of that project, how many apartments have got booked, and what is the percentage of work that he has done in those buildings, excavation, what percentage. Now, this is the type of information about every project is out there. And if you do an advanced search, you can then make an informed choice. If you are wanting to invest in a particular property, you go in a particular area, Andheri, and you find that in Andheri there are 30 schemes that are ongoing. And from that, you can visit each of those schemes, see all the details of the scheme, and then come to the conclusion, which is the scheme where I should go ahead and then put in my money. Now, this is something which is, according to me, it gives me goosebumps. This is something which I never thought, that this type of empowerment of citizens can happen with this type of information which can be given out in the public domain. So that is what is there. The point I was mentioning is about carpet area. Now, issues on which I will be able to compare whether a person who is giving me a 60 carpet area and another person who says, no, I'll give you 65 carpet area. And when I go and talk to them, because the rates at which you will make the decision or you will sign the agreement are not out there. That is the only thing. That is something between you when you take a decision to go ahead and make that decision to buy. But then when I find something is 60 and the other is 65, my natural instinct is, oh, 65 is a bigger area. And if he's giving me at, say, 10,000 rupees and the other person is also charging 10,000, I should go with this. And suddenly we realize that no, carpet area can be differently defined by different people. So you have to have one unit which is understood equally by everyone who says what is carpet area. So government in its act defined carpet area, though carpet area may be defined in the development control regulations in different manners. But then government in its wisdom said that no, we will centralize that definition. So that centralized definition has said that what are not to be included and what is to be included. So it has no relationship with the FSI. It could be something which is free of FSI, which could be in the fungible FSI, but still it may be in the carpet area, may not be in the carpet area. If you go into the website and download the diagrammatic thing that we have done, that brings you to a level where how do you compare two rates when you know what is the carpet area that you are getting. So that is, we felt was necessary, so we did that. And I'm told that even other states, after we did this, they felt that, yes, this is a good thing to follow, and they have also followed. So these are basically the important things. Now, in the second quarter of our implementation, the last two, the SOP have become important. Because if we take the implementation phase by phase, the first phase of 90 days were meant for trying to bring in the ambit of the Act all projects. And essentially it was, the 90-day window was provided for all ongoing projects to come and register themselves. And ongoing projects is defined as a project where construction is going on and OC is yet to be received. Now, if you see, Maharashtra has been able to prevail upon these stakeholders called developers and tell them that it is in their interest that all these ongoing projects that are there, where completion is still not complete, people are still waiting for the homes to be delivered, should come and get themselves registered, because they need to come under the ambit of the Act. And we had 13,000 plus such ongoing projects which came and registered themselves with us. And that translates to what? It translates to 17 lakh plus apartments and plots. 2 lakhs are plots and 15.5 lakhs are apartments, which have both. Apartments are defined as both residential, commercial, office spaces, everything, which according to me captures more or less all the ongoing projects that might be going on today in the state of Maharashtra. Now compare this with what is the all India scenario. The whole country put together, including Maharashtra, has 20,000 ongoing project registrations, of which 13.5 are in Maharashtra. Now don't tell me that there are only 6,000 ongoing projects in Noida, Hyderabad, Bengaluru, and various other places also which have a lot of construction activity put together, which basically means that the implementation here has been where the developers have shown compliant behavior, which is one of the most important aspects of this Act. So the first 3 months, as I mentioned, went into trying and capturing all these into the ambit of the Act and registering them. After the registration has taken place, the Act also requires all these projects need to be updated every quarter. Because as I mentioned to you, when you go into the website into any registered project, I'll tell you how do you go into that. You will find that on these parameters of how much excavation done, how many slabs have been cast, on all these details, percentage-wise, they are supposed to update it every quarter, once every quarter. Now, this also tells you that if you suppose have invested in a project, you don't need to go there. If the home is suppose away in Bhiwandi, Karjat or any other place, you can sit on your computer also and keep on tracking the project to see whether there is progress in the project or not, whether there is reason to doubt the developer's integrity. Is everything fine, or should I need to be a little more cautious? All those things can come out of this. So the last SOP that we put out was basically to tell these 13,500 people, the developers who have registered their projects, how they should go about updating the projects, so that that information goes out again in the public domain as to what is the latest status of the project. And the 13 was also important because the essential part of this Act is consumer protection. And consumer protection is where in these projects, when people have a difficulty, when they have a grievance, then there has to be an expeditious redressal of that grievance. Something which did not happen in MOFA, and something which people expect would happen here with a quasi-judicial authority in place who should be able to deliver after a delay complaint is filed with them within a period of 60 days as the Act contemplates. So that SOP as to how a person should go about, and all these essential dealing with the MahaRERA Authority is on a digital platform. So I was also surprised after my 33 years in service, where I used to only keep on getting files, and then files, every time I push the files out, again a full new set of files will come and arrive on my table. Here is a case where about 14,000 projects and 10,000 real estate agents, close to 24,000 projects and agents, and about 400 odd complaints. All these applications have come in, and not a single paper has entered my office. And I also did not require a single footfall of these people to come to the office to chase the project, because everything is happening online. Next. Now this is the homepage of the website, which I now mentioned. Please do visit the homepage of the website. Website is maharera.mahaonline.gov.in. And here I am just telling you what I was mentioning, that in the download section, we have Maharashtra, Daman, Diu, because the government of India also attached these two union territories with MahaRERA. So we have Maharashtra and also Daman, Diu and Dadra Nagar Haveli as the area of jurisdiction of MahaRERA. So in Maharashtra, if you go in the download section, as I mentioned to you, the Act, the 5 rules of Maharashtra, the 2 regulations, the orders and circulars, totally 14 in number, the rulings of MahaRERA. Now all these adjudication processes have begun. We have been hearing them, and we have been also passing orders. I think close to now 32 is the present number of total orders of grievances which were raised with us, where they were heard, both the sides were heard through advocates, without advocates, and we have passed orders. Those are out. FAQ is also another interesting thing, because we felt that there'll be a lot of questions in the mind of the people right on day one. So in April, when we were putting it out in the website and making it live, we approached all the three important stakeholders in this act: the developers, the real estate agents, and the consumer forum. And we asked them to frame questions that are coming in their mind after reading the act and the rules. And whatever questions came up, we then sat and worked out the answers to them. And close to some 200 questions, first FAQ, an additional FAQ, and further additional FAQ, that's another put out there. So that is what is available in the download section. And apart from that, we have this about us, the information about who are the chairpersons and members and their various contact details, their email IDs and telephone numbers. So it's easy for people to also access these contacts. Media gallery, let me also mention, please visit the media gallery. There is a jingle which I have composed and sung. So you will be able to see a MahaRERA jingle, which I thought, let me show my involvement to MahaRERA by singing that jingle. So that is also available there. And online application is the most important thing which most people are visiting, because through that's the online portal. That takes you to the portal from where you do the interaction of setting out your own user ID and all, which I'll explain in due course. Next. Now, MRTP Act, Maharashtra Regional Town Planning Act, has been made applicable to whole of Maharashtra. So all the districts are now covered. That's it happened only this year. Earlier, we also had Gram Panchayats, and the Gram Panchayat body also as a planning authority, but that is no longer so. Therefore, this is also a problem that we have to now face. There have been ongoing projects where the Gram Panchayats may have given the commencement certificate, and thereafter the project today, because we are in this transition, these projects will have to be then certified by the ADTPs who are working with the collectors. So we have these issues where certain projects which need an approval of the competent planning authority, and since that is not there, the project cannot be registered, because the registration requires one basic important thing for registration would be that you have the basic layout approval from the competent planning authority. And at least one building in the layout should have the approval of, whether you say intimation of disapproval or intimation of approval as per the MRTP Act, that should be there. Apart from one building, the other buildings in the layout may be still in a proposal stage. In due course, when you get your TDR or FSI, you might get approval. But then for registration purpose, you can go ahead and register your project when you have the layout approved, if it is a layout, more than one building, and at least one building must have the IOD/IOA. Okay, now this again has raised issues, because you see, these are the overhang and the legacy problems of the past. We have projects, in fact, today's Times of India carries one of them, a project in Mira Road, which doesn't have any approval. Even the land does not belong to the person. But then he came out maybe with a glossy advertisement where he maybe promised the moon, and there are people, hapless consumers, who felt that, no, he's giving a very good rate, let's go ahead and put in money, and then maybe he did some further sweet talking and continue to extract money from the consumers, and there are a whole lot of hundreds of consumers who have put in money. And then the situation is so bad that RERA also cannot provide a relief, because I cannot ask the developer, you come and register your project, because he cannot register the project, because the basic requirement for a registration, and that is important, because after a project is registered, it is not only to tackle the issues of ongoing projects, it's also in every project that is getting registered, there is also an unsold inventory. And from that unsold inventory, the new persons who would want to invest and buy should have that level of comfort that, no, this project has the basic approval and the registration of RERA. So these are some of the issues, but then these are the pains of transition, and we'll have to go through them and we'll have to overcome them. Now, all projects get covered throughout Maharashtra, barring these 5 exceptions. if it's a small project, less than 8, less than 500 square meter, or if it is only a redevelopment project which does not involve a sale component. Now here, there is an issue in the sense that a project can be defined in a phase, and that has been defined in the Maharashtra rules. So if suppose there is a slum rehabilitation project or a 33/7 cess building redevelopment or a MahaRERA redevelopment, for the portion of the redevelopment, if suppose he has only IOD for that and he's going ahead with that, there is no requirement for him to come and register even that rehab portion. But suppose if he wants to register where there is a rehab component building also and also a free sale building, then the whole thing he can also register. So we have had both the types. There have been cases where there is only a rehab building and he's still struggling to get maybe the slum dwellers out of the area so that the rehab building gets completed. Only when the rehab building gets completed, he moves the slum dwellers into the building, then that free sale portion land gets cleared and then only he'll start the work. When that happens, then maybe, because that will be the portion where he will create third-party rights and get people to buy in that project. However, why we have also, without the free sale building coming up, people coming forward in those 13,500 projects and registering it with us is because the developers have created third-party rights, have raised money from people when the free sale building is nowhere in sight. Neither the approval is there, nor the open land is there where the building will come up. Now, there we force the developers to say that, no, this is a part of this project, then you must come and register yourself. So we have also such projects which have registered. The good thing about these projects would be, and how the people staying in the rehabilitation portion or redevelopment portion will get benefited is, that while registering the project, they have to set out a timeline by which they will complete the project. And that timeline is sacrosanct, because the approval or the registration certificate that the developer gets is only valid till that period. And even extension has to be given. He can get a maximum extension only of 1 year, not beyond that. So with that fear in mind, in fact, this is another thing that has appeared in the media, you would have read also, that a lot of these projects where the third-party rights created, agreements also have been signed, and the agreement said that you will get your home in, say, 2016, 17 or whatever. But today when he has put out the project there, he has mentioned a date of 2020 or 2022. Now there, of course, he's trying to be safe that at least by that time, I will complete the project in every respect. And even my unsold stock of that 51%, which Knight Frank says in all these projects, there are 51% unsold inventory. Also will have to, people will come forward and invest. For them, maybe the 2020 or 22 is valid. But then, that does not mean that a person with whom he has signed an agreement where he was supposed to deliver in 2017 automatically gets an extension of 3 years. No, it doesn't happen. I had clarified that. I'm again clarifying. There, of course, the project is come under registration of this RERA Act, and therefore the various sections of RERA will apply, where if suppose he delays, and the delay is whatever has been set out as a timeline in the agreement for sale, if he does not adhere to that, then he needs to be penalized for that, for the extra money that he has collected. Now, these are the things which will gradually come out as adjudication processes are adjudicated and orders are out in the public domain. So therefore, how even the developer will have to come to terms with when a new regulatory regime is in place. Two examples I'll give. One, the Act requires that he cannot go sell, advertise, market any project unless it is registered with RERA. For ongoing, there was a 90-day window, which is now over. So today, any project that you hear in the radio or in the television you see, or you see in the print media, as an advertisement for a project, cannot be advertised unless it has a registration of MahaRERA. Okay. The only exception would be if the building is already completed. So if an occupation certificate is already granted, then the building is no longer a project. The project ceases to be a project, it becomes a building. So we are not monitoring or regulating the sale and purchase of a building. We are doing it only when there is a project which has the first initial approval, and we are hand-holding till it reaches the occupancy certificate. And it's a scheme which is book, build and sell, which means a person's booking amount is taken and then gradually as the scheme progresses, you keep on taking monies in installment, and ultimately you take the 100% money and you also complete the project and deliver the flat to him. So this is what is in the sense what RERA requires to be monitored, to be regulated. Now, so the two examples I wanted to give is, you will see in most of the advertisements, and I have been telling this to the developers forum, that you should utilize this registration that you have as something which is a trump card for you. Because essentially, two developers who launched projects came back to me after his launching saying that, sir, we advertise our project and boldly set out that this is MahaRERA registered number so and so, used your logo and everything. And we also said that initial bookings, the early bird, this is what we will give. And to our surprise, we found that more than that number that we had expected, people turned up. And all the people who turned up were fully equipped with all the information that they should have. So they had downloaded from the registered project information that is there in MahaRERA website and come fully equipped and were asking questions which were pertinent questions. So he was actually thanking that due to this brand equity of MahaRERA registration, our project is getting a thumbs up from the consumers, and which I also feel is certainly the case, because this certainly gives a comfort level not only to the consumers who would like to make this decision to go ahead and make an investment in a project and make an informed choice. It also is a comfort level for investors and financiers who would also feel that there is now someone, a big brother, who would be watching as to whether the project is going ahead properly or not, because there are fundamental things in this act, in this whole implementation, by which no diversion of funds should take place. There is fiscal discipline. All those aspects are there. And therefore, from both the counts, the industry gets benefited. However, I find it quite surprising, and I still feel that people are groping to understand as to what is this act supposed to be meant for, when they put out the MahaRERA registration number at the bottom of the page in such a manner that with naked eye, no one will be able to see that. I fail to understand as to why they don't use this opportunity to say that, yes, boldly I say that I am a MahaRERA registered, this is my number, please go to my website, you will see all the credentials of last 5 years, what I have done. This is not happening. So this is what I feel is something which the developers have still not understood. The second point which I feel is that while trying to play safe in trying to put out a timeline that no, this project which I had earlier promised in 2017, but with various difficulties, and I foresee many more difficulties may come, now I have put out a timeline of 2022 or 2025. He doesn't realize that the situation now is so different that the 51% of your stock which is not sold, the consumer now is equipped with information of your rivals also in that area, who will not come to you and wait for 7 years to actually book a flat and wait for 7 years to get his flat. So you need to be very cautious when you are putting out that date, how much of risk you will take to see that, no, I must push my project and complete it as quickly as possible, because then only the person who needs a house will come forward and book his house in my project. So this is something which I am again trying to impress upon them. But I believe everyone is on the learning curve, and over a period of time, we will try and understand that. Next. These are the 5 key pillars of the Act. Some of the things I have already touched upon. Transparency is the most important thing. And as I said, all the details of the project out in the public domain for everybody to see. Number 2, fiscal discipline. Fiscal discipline is that the monies that you collect from the consumers, 70% of that must get into that project. That project's land cost and construction cost incurred is the amount that you can take out from this designated account that you have to create. So a major problem which this sector has faced of monies being collected and then diverted to expand. You will have seen certain developers overnight have suddenly become a huge developer. So as I mentioned this example of this morning Times of India's Mira Road project, there are people who would have collected monies and then gone ahead and created 10 more such projects, and suddenly overnight has become a super developer, because then he has projects in everywhere in Maharashtra. Now that is something will be hopefully a thing of the past, because there will be fiscal discipline here. Monies collected have to be utilized for that project. Accountability, another important factor. you need to be accountable for whatever you are doing or not doing. So acts of omission and commission of everybody who is there in this line of decision making, from a project getting approved till a project getting completed. We feel in MahaRERA that everybody down the line must be held accountable. And this is one of the points which developers and architects have mentioned, that when you set out a timeline, ask us to mention a timeline by which we'll complete the project. It's not that we have control on that timeline. We are dependent on various approvals of authorities, and there is no accountability there. So there you need to bring in that accountability. Since the government, the Act, the Parliament has given this authority to MahaRERA, which has the powers of a civil court, and we can summon anyone, we feel that whenever this is brought to our notice, that there is someone who should be held accountable for his act of omission or commission, and he is someone who belongs to a competent planning authority, we feel that we can certainly call him, and though we do not have power to penalize him, but then we certainly have the power to name and shame him if he is at fault. So this is where we would feel these are challenges to us. We should be able to deliver on that, so that at least the industry becomes much more disciplined, and people who may feel that they can hold the industry to ransom should then become more disciplined. Customer centricity, certainly, that is the basic tenet of this act, because everything that you do ultimately leads to consumer protection, and it should be done because the project is in this category of book, build and sell. So if I am booking my flat, if I am paying for the flat, then I feel that he is the prime creditor. An issue has come up in the insolvency code in JP Infra case as to who is the creditor and where do the buyers stand. So if you ask me, I would feel in the real estate sector at least, if the project is getting implemented in a manner that as and when you do the plinth, I pay you 20%, then I sign the agreement, I pay you this, blah, 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 till the building gets completed. That means I am paying for the project. So essentially, you are not a developer, you are my contractor. So if I am paying you money and you are doing it, then I should have the first right. So essentially, the Act, therefore, recognizes the consumer as the king, and it has consumer centricity. Compliance, as I mentioned, there are huge penalties for non-compliant behavior. So it is expected that over a period of time, these bad habits which would have generated in this sector called developer would actually change into good habits over a period of time, and we will see compliant behavior. The first 3 months has been satisfactory to me. As I mentioned, all of them came around and put up their project for registration. So projects got registered in Maharashtra, which did not happen elsewhere in the country. So we feel here, when we spoke to Naredco, MCHI and CREDAI, the 3 developers bodies, they did respond and they could prevail upon their members to come forward and register. Next. This, I need not go in the details. I will leave behind this presentation. So this can be also circulated to people, whoever wants to make a copy. Essentially says, what are those things? If we talk about citizen transparency, in the transparency, he has to share his project layout, his approvals, all these things he has to give. When you go into a registered project and you go into the uploads, he has uploaded all those things, his land title details, his no encumbrance certificate, all those information that is put out there gives you that basic comfort level that yes, this is a project where I think I should go ahead and put my money. And timely completion, defect liability, 5 years. So these are the basic things. I have culled it out from the various sections of the Act, which tackles these issues of transparency and citizen centricity. And I said non-compliant behavior, false statements, false advertisements, giving out wrong information, not giving information that should be supposed to be given. All these are violations under the Act. And if they violate, there are serious penalties under the Act. Next. Fiscal discipline, as I mentioned, 70% of the funds that he collects from the consumers should get into this designated fund. This is the designated bank account, which should be operated. And as I mentioned right in the beginning, whatever is to be done from the developer side has to be overseen by this set of 3 professionals: the architects, the engineers, and the chartered accountants. And there are certificates which are prescribed in the regulation, which the architect gives or the engineer gives. The architect gives 2 certificates. Certificate number 1 at the time of registration, which says what amount of work has been done. And these information that you give, even if you are an architect working for the developer, it is expected that you are not doing it for your principal. You're doing it because of your professional thing that has been given to you as an architect. And same thing applies for a chartered accountant too, who has to certify the various costs and other things. So these various certificates which have to be given by them, and the architect finally also gives the certificate which is based on the occupancy certificate. He certifies that yes, based on the occupancy certificate, I certify that the building and the project is complete in all respect. So both these certificates that the architects have to be given with a lot of responsibility, because you are doing the work as a professional. Next. So this captures what is supposed to be done by the promoter. As I mentioned, he has to register new and ongoing projects. He has to make all the disclosures which are accordance with the Act, which I was just covered in the earlier 2 slides. He has to do a quarterly update. There are punishment also for that. If you do not do the quarterly update, then also you can be penalized. So punishments for all non-compliant behavior or things which you are supposed to do in the Act, and if you have not done. Then advertisement brochures, prospectus issued, all should carry the MahaRERA registration number, and which, as I mentioned, is being done only in this manner just to see that I have not violated the Act. I am putting out the advertisement or the number in such a manner that no one is able to see, which I feel over a period of they will realize, no, it is not the correct thing to do. We need to boldly put out that we are a RERA registered. I remember when I was the DG shipping, we used to have all these maritime training institutions, and each one of them used to very proudly say, the first thing they would put out is that we are registered by the DG shipping or certified by DG shipping. I thought the same thing will apply here, but it has not happened as yet. Hopefully it will happen soon. He's responsible for the obligations that are cast on him in the Act. Again, for not doing that, there are penalties prescribed, which are quite serious. They range from 5% to 10% of the project cost, which could be quite heavy. And then further, if after an order is passed, they do not adhere to the order, then it can also lead to 3 years imprisonment. So the penalties prescribed in the Act are quite severe. Then, as I mentioned, formation of legal entity as soon as 51% of the people have booked their flats. This is also a very great thing that has happened here. Till yesterday, in the Maharashtra various cooperative society thing, after the building gets completed, OC gets obtained, thereafter people are called together to form the cooperative society or the condominium or whatever. Here, as soon as 51% of the people have booked their flat, you should start the process of forming the society. Which means that the society also is able to then oversee the project, see that the project gets completed, and in case there are difficulties and problems in the project, the authority of the RERA also can call that body, which is a legal entity, to discuss the way forward if there are difficulties in the project. Then, of course, conveyance, as I mentioned, that's also important thing. Within 3 months of OC, conveyance should be completed. And the fiscal discipline, as I mentioned. Next. Real estate agent is also captured in this provisions of the Act. Every agent who wants to work as an agent for facilitating the sale, purchase of any tenement will also have to be registered. And whenever a consumer is dealing with an agent, he can always ask the agent, please show me your RERA registration. And when he shares his number, you can again go to the website and check whether he is actually registered and what are the details that he has put out in the MahaRERA site. So this is another information which empowers a person to understand the person with whom I am dealing with is someone whom I can go ahead or not. So there are also some responsibilities cast on the agent and how he can be penalized for his acts of omission and commission. Next. Then these are the 3 stakeholders, as I mentioned. Allottees. What are the rights? Mainly these are the rights of the allottees. He is entitled to get all the information. He is entitled to know the detailed stage-wise progress, that is every quarter. He is entitled to claim possession of the apartment, penal interest if suppose there is delay in getting his apartment. Then compensation if he wants to quit the project, if the project has run into trouble and he feels that it is unnecessarily delayed. There are provisions in the Act by which he can go not only get his interest for the amount that he has paid, but also since he is quitting from the project, he can claim compensation. There is an adjudicating officer of MahaRERA who adjudicates on amount of compensation. Then some of the duties that he is also supposed to make the timely payments as is prescribed in the agreement that he has signed. Also form the legal entity, participate in the formation of the legal entity, take possession of the apartment or the building as soon as it is completed, and also in the conveyance. Next. Now, as I mentioned, all this information can be viewed on the website. The same front homepage of the website If you go into online application, I'm skipping because online application is meant for people who would like to register a project, who would like to register an online complaint against a registered project. He has to go through that. Registration project, if you click on this, you will have registered project, registered real estate agents. Next. When you go into this, if you click on registered project, you will have this. And you also have an advanced search. So you can search if you know that you have the project name and the promoter's name and certificate number, you can do it in that manner. Or you could actually get information. Suppose you click on the division and you click Konkan division and you want to know in Konkan division, say in Mumbai suburban district, how many projects. If you click on that and go into search, you will get all those 900 or 1000 projects which are there, which have been registered. Okay, so this gives the information at one go. You can spend time to go into a project which is of your interest or an area which is of interest where you would like to go and make some decisions. Next. Now, this is the dashboard which is available at the chairperson's desk. I thought, let me take a snapshot of that. This is 2 days old. So this gives me the total number of promoters that have applied to us, 13,780, which has just gone above 14,000 now. Sorry, 13,800. And of which 13,373, about 13,400 are already registered and information out in that registered project, as I just now mentioned. Promoters is also close to 10,000. Total number of complaints which have been filed. Complaints are against ongoing projects, essentially, where people are saying that I should have got a possession 2 years back, I've still not got, I want to quit, I want interest, various types of prayers that they have. It's close to about 380, 85 now. Then Union and Territories, it has just started. We created that software last month. So 2 applications there have come in. We also found that in this whole rush of people coming in and putting in their applications, it was quite surprising. Up to 28th of July, the 90-day period ended on 31st July. Up to 28th of July, and I was keeping my fingers crossed, we had only 1,500 applications. 1,500. And this is in spite of my going to Nashik, Pune twice, thrice, prevailing upon them. Don't make a last moment rush because maybe my website may crash, all sorts of things may happen. But then it got unheeded and I felt that maybe I'll end up 31st July, like maybe Noida and other places, with only 2,000 applications. And it would have been a very difficult task for us, where we have majority of the people who are non-compliant. But in those last 3 days, 29, 30, 31st of July, we had close to about 9,000 applications. And thanks to Maha Online, my website did not crash. We could manage them. And then on the midnight of 31st, we had these frantic calls from people, sir, we have just missed the deadline, so don't close the window. We want to keep on applying. I said, fair enough. The whole act is based on compliant behavior. So even if it is delayed, if he is now woken up and he wants to show compliant behavior, I think we should allow that. So we allowed that for 2 months. And in those 2 months, we had 4,000 applications further coming in. So I thought that was a good idea to do that by making a small penalty on them and do that. So by 30th of September, we have now, as I mentioned to you, this is the type of applications that have come in. And since in those last 3 days, there was this rush that we must put in the application somehow or the other, we had a lot of applications which had deficiencies or required corrections. So for that also, we created another module and we allowed them to come forward and make those corrections. Barring the correction of where they said that, no, I have said 2018, I want to now change it to 2019. We said, no, that is not permitted. But if you have said 2018, you want to change it to 2017, you're welcome. So that's what is happening. And to my utter surprise, there were some guys who had put out 23. After I mentioned to them that you are a fool, you will not get a single booking for the flats which you have not sold. He's come back to say that now, sir, ek saal usko aage kar lijiye. 2022 kar dijiye. So that's how it is. Next, please. That is all that I have for you, and then maybe I can take questions. Thank you. I'm fine. I have all the time with me, but then you decide how much time you want me to allocate to questions. I am available for whatever questions you want to ask.
Okay, so any questions? One there. People who want to ask questions, can they raise their hands? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Late registration is also permissible.
Yeah. So the 3 gentlemen.
So बुलंद आवाज है, वहां से बोलेंगे, हम सुन लेंगे.
Yeah. Can you introduce yourself briefly?
I'm a 5th year student, architecture student from MahaRERA. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned in one of your slides that buildings less than 500 square meters, and there is also a restriction in the
8 apartments.
Yeah, so they need not apply.
That is not brought under the ambit of the Act, yes.
So I was wondering, all the buildings that have been enrolled so far, majority would be from cities like Mumbai, Pune. But then what about cities like Satara?
You go to the website, you will see district-wise, you will be able to find out. There are registrations from every district. Of course, some districts will show less, but then there are registrations from every district. Nashik, division, you go to division, within the division, you go to the district, click on the district, and then you click search, you will come to see all the projects that are registered. Majority are Mumbai and Pune, you are right. But there are also projects in the other places.
Go to us.
No, there are a lot of plotted developments. They are also part of this. Yes. And in fact, Nashik and other places also are catching up. Kolhapur. There are some of these multi-story buildings, may not be G+20, but certainly there are buildings which are having more than 8 apartments. Bungalow, again, if the area becomes more than 500 square meters, then it will have to come. If you are constructing 20 bungalows, then the area goes beyond 500 square meter. No, this was also a major challenge. You see, when we said that everything will be on a digital platform, it was maybe wrong on our part to say that a person sitting in Mumbai is equally proficient in the IT as a person sitting in Gadchiroli or Chandrapur. And that is why one of the reasons why we said that no, let us give some sort of a free hand to them even after the 90-day, because we had majority of these people who came after the 90-day period were belonging to these regions only. And this is in spite of the fact that I had told CREDAI Pune, CREDAI Maharashtra, that you set out a young group of professionals who will go to every district and handhold them and tell them as to how to go about. Fortunately, that has happened quite well. But then I'm sure, because when I go into the detailed data, I find that there are a lot of deficiencies there. And that has happened not because of any delinquency. That has happened because the awareness is not 100% complete. So we will have to handhold them for the next 6 months, 1 year, to see that we bring them to that level of digital proficiency. Yeah.
The next person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, first I want to congratulate you because it's a very foolproof idea and it's very difficult to sort of find problems in it. But what I wanted to know is if there's a transparency in the platform where consumers can actually have a look at the entire database of the system, then why doesn't it eliminate the use of estate agents which play a key role? So those are the middlemen which actually take the brokerage from both the sides. So if the data is available on the net, why doesn't it eliminate the...
I agree with you. Over a period of time, I think that is what is going to happen. There is no need for this middleman to do the brokerage between the two. Essentially, but it requires some time for the consumer to get empowered with the information that is there. They should learn how to utilize the information. That is going to take some time. But I think I agree with you. Over a period of time, that is what it should be. You need not depend on that estate agent. Because what extra value will the estate agent add? And that's actually a challenge to us also. If I find that whatever information I have put out there, beyond that also the estate agent is adding some more value, that then becomes my challenge to actually include that in my thing, so that again his role is minimized. So over a period of time, I agree with you, that's going to happen.
There's another person there who wanted to ask a question.
Sir, I'm there.
No, not you, not you. There was somebody else who raised the hand behind you. Okay, go ahead. Sir.
So I'm there from C,
School of Environment and Architecture. I had a couple of questions when, like, you were talking about you have to mention a time deadline when you propose to complete your building. So there might be situations sometime when there is a labor strike or something like that. So is there any provision for extension?
Force majeure clauses are there. If there is a court stay and certain matters which prevented him from going ahead in the project, that provision has been there made in the Maharashtra rules. That's there.
And one more question I had, that usually when the area is under a certain square meters, you get the residential flats usually get a incentive or something. So is it a compulsion to give those
Incentive like?
When you give the fungible to make it 300 square feet, if it's lesser than that.
No, we are not relating a definition of a carpet area to what is counted in FSI, what is counted in fungible. That is not, there is no relationship there. The definition of carpet area is what has been put out there in that circular.
Yeah, because it becomes, so basically the idea is to give transparency and...
Yes, the transparency comes in this manner. So when the person signs an agreement with the individual to whom he is selling the flat, there he mentions that as per the definition of RERA, I am giving you 55.7 square meter of carpet area. Beyond this, I am giving you, say, 15 meters of a balcony space. Beyond that, I am giving you this much meter of this space. So essentially in a layout, what are the three types of spaces? One, which is for the exclusive use of that consumer. So in that exclusive use of the area that he is giving to the consumer, also there are these two categories. One, which is counted in the carpet area, and the other which is not counted in the carpet area but needs to be spelled out in a transparent manner in the agreement that he is signing. Number one. Number two is the area which is not his exclusive area but which is the common area of the society. That also he has to spell out, that you will have this much of open spaces, this and that, where you will be able to utilize that. In the parking also, if it is a garage or it's a covered parking as defined in the Maharashtra rules, that is also for the exclusive use of that person. He can sell it. But if it is an open parking has to be handed over to the society, and it will be the society's business to see how they will utilize the open parking among its members. And if it is a large layout and a township, then the third level is the apex body called the federation. Then those things will actually go to the federation. So this is the hierarchy of areas which will go to the various consumers or their bodies. Okay?
Any more questions? Yes. 1, 2, just a minute, and 3. Okay, so you can go first, please. No,
so
hear him.
I wanted to ask, does land price come under the ambit of the
It does. Land cost and construction cost both come.
Okay, so this body also regulates land prices then to prevent.
Yes, he upfront mentions that amount of what amount of money has gone into land cost. If you go into the details of the regulation, land cost also, he may have incurred that money. He may have taken loan from someone. He may have entered into a joint development agreement with that landowner, by virtue of which he will share certain areas with him, which we have defined as a co-promoter. But then essentially, whatever money the developer, when he is registering his project and later on, he incurs on the land, that money he can take out from the 70%. That's the bottom line.
Sir, I'm a chairman of a corporate society. I want to pay two builders. It's the SRA sale project. Half the building is completed, and one partner has given the position. Half of the building is left with the other partners. Now we have a dispute with both the builders. Now claim about 20 crore rupees for the deficiency service, and incomplete what of things to be collected from the builder. We have got a leading lawyer in real estate. We have been told to go to National Commission, and then Supreme Court is a faster route. Rather than going to RERA, then appellate civil, then going to the High Court, then going to long course, then Supreme Court. So we have got another leading person in this real estate. We have to go to RERA because the quick disposal. Even RERA appellate quick disposal.
I like the second person.
Yeah, the quick disposal, and National Commission takes it covers all the disputes. Here only real estate. The both the places.
So after my presentation today, make an informed choice.
So
Where do you want to go?
We are in really
Fix.
both are leading personality in this field.
I am not that leading, but then I will tell you, come to me, I will give you relief.
You are thinking whether to come to you or go to National Commission.
I think you'll have to make the choice, but that's obviously he's going to recommend that you can come to me. That's what he just said. Yes, there was someone else here who wanted. Yes, sorry.
Sudhir Badami, my question, I assume that when you have a housing project, the number of people expected to be staying in that project is also well defined by the developer, so that the amenities that he is trying to sell, the purchaser is able to judge whether it's not crowded or not crowded, and accordingly then decides what is the rate that he is going to pay. Since you say upfront the rates are not mentioned in the
Correct.
That's one part. The second thing is that
So two people are looking at that. First is, of course, the Development Control Regulation Authority, which is approving the project, whether the amenities and other things are in accordance with the regulation or not, one. And two is, of course, the person, he is able to see what are the amenities that are being given to him, again in that website in the registered project, and then making a decision.
okay, so that becomes an informed decision.
Correct.
And then you know that you are not paying too much or too little for
The payment will come later. After you have seen that, made notes, and then you go to the person and say, you are asking for this much, but then your amenities are not up to that. So you actually can counter him on that.
The other thing is that since the government of Maharashtra provides the, what you call that rate,
Ready reckoner.
ready reckoner, is that also easily accessible through some link?
I think so. I think so. I immediately cannot, but I am told that it is also accessible.
If I pick up a particular project from your RERA, I should be able to.
I think it is accessible. I think it's available.
So then it gives us some.
Yes, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have another question?
I'm Shri from Tata Trust. So the good thing that has been has took place when I traveled from Mumbai to Pune on the road, big bold line has been here, RERA registered has been put on the board. So, thank you. But when I have gone through the website, I found it is very important that it should be user friendly. So few things are not being now user friendly, which like a layman like us will be able to access to. And like people like Omkar can do it, like doing a 1 month research on that, but people like us will be very difficult.
Let me understand.
So that is one area I think.
No, I need to understand where you found that it's very difficult, because I have till now got a feedback that it is very user friendly. So first time I'm hearing, I would like to get enlightened on that.
I wanted to purchase a home at Mumbai, so I have different choices. So getting into that different choices, there is no barcode that we should show that what are the choices, and the searches are based on these components. So the search engine that we have done, that is very friendly to the builders. That is very friendly to people, those who are interested on search.
Can you go back to that slide on that? I don't think so. The advanced search is, I thought, is very, very user friendly. It's not meant for builder at all.
Okay, sir.
It's not meant for builders at all. You see here, when you go into this advanced search, I don't have that slide
Yeah,
here.
I tried, sir. I went and I tried. So I'll give you some information.
I think this is the advanced search only. You go into the division, and if you click on the search, you will get all the 7,000 applications from Mumbai which are there.
Yeah.
Okay. If you go into the division and the district, you go into Mumbai suburb or Mumbai city or Thane, and then you search in the Thane 1,000 projects that you have, you find them.
Yes. That information is there.
No,
but
but
only thing
that is not meant for developer.
Curated information is not there. So that's my submission. It's curated information. What information each people are really searching, that information is not there. So
No, I need to understand what is really.
the information. I'm not saying that information is totally there, but the summary of the information, what people have cannot just go to one by one and then.
Correct. So I think what he's trying to say is that the site does not create for him a matrix to go through
That's
at one
precisely
time.
what I'm saying. If you
That's what
want
he's
to
saying.
go to the village, it goes down to the level of the village. When
No,
you
but if
come
I
down-
have to make a choice between 30,
Huh?
so if I have to make a choice between 30 projects
30 projects in that village of
in
Powai.
that area
Okay.
of with all its attributes. That is something which probably he's saying is not well, but might be a mammoth task.
That is very difficult for I don't.
You said honesty in the website itself. So who puts in that information? I don't think RERA looks into that information. It's what a builder is claiming.
No, but his claim is out in the public domain for a person who is affected by the information, who feels it's wrong information, to file a complaint, and for that non-compliant behavior, the builder can be punished up to 5% of the project cost. Can you imagine that this type of a thing? To say that why did you not check the information before you registered means I would have prevented this information from coming to the public domain.
It's a self-declaration, so that is...
Please try and understand that. Today, why 13,500 projects are out in the public domain for everyone to see and file complaint? It's because we went ahead on the basis of the declaration that you made. And the onus is on you, that you should give the correct declaration. If you do it wrongly, you should be penalized for that.
So maybe the guys who put the small things, you got to check what they put up on the side.
No, that's for you. If you have enormous time with you, you please do it. I am now hard pressed for time. I just do not know how 48 hours I could get in a day in order to tackle this. So,
Okay. Sir,
You're on the right path. So happy something at the moment.
Okay, sir,
Any more questions, sir? Yes.
This is Tezania from Shri College. So you mentioned that if a builder is not able to go ahead with the project, then he can. There is some compensation provided to him. So then, if a builder, for example, is not able to go on with the project, so there is some compensation.
no, there is no compensation to the builder. The builder is supposed to carry out the project and complete it. If he puts his hands up, there is now an insolvency code, or he will come to the authority and say that I am insolvent, I don't have money. So there is a provision there wherein the project's registration will be revoked, and the right of first refusal will be with the consumers. The consumers will be asked, would you like to take over the project? Or the RERA will get in touch with the government to see whether there can be someone else who will take over the project. Ultimately, our challenge before us today, when we have registered ongoing projects, the challenge, the single one thing that is there for RERA is to see that all these 13,000 odd projects should get completed and not stop midway, and people should get their homes. Okay, and therefore I keep on saying that we are different from the insolvency code. In the insolvency code, you liquidate it. The resolution plan is hardly a plan where you complete the project. You only take a haircut and then you say that yes, everything is fine. That is not the case here. Here the only resolution plan has to be that the project must get completed and people should get their homes. That's a huge, huge challenge. And that challenge has to be met over the next 3, 4, 5 years to see all these ongoing projects which have been languishing maybe for years should get completed. And there will be major, major problems. I can foresee that. There will be people who will come forward and say, I don't have money. And especially when people who have put in money and would like to exit from the project, there will be liquidity crisis. So these issues certainly will come up. But then let's see how we meet the challenge.
If there is a genuine reason that a person is not able to do the project, then how exactly is the project carried out? Like in that case?
No, the genuine reason has arisen because he has not utilized the money for whatever he collected the money. Let's understand that. It's an obvious thing that when he collected the money, that money was sufficient to complete the project. He has diverted the money elsewhere, and therefore now he comes back and says this is a genuine reason. Is it genuine? It is not. So you have been a delinquent in the past, you will have to pay for that. Now you will have to find out some sort of a resolution plan, some interim finance, someone should come forward, some creditor should come forward and give you money at higher rates of interest, or this is the entrepreneurship that you have to show. I don't see any.
Just a
yes,
anybody else has a question? Let me just
At this point, I think that quarterly updating of the data by the developer is one of the reflection of that person's putting the money where it should go.
Correct.
So that is, I think, a kind of a check, cross check.
Yeah.
No, we intend to also further analyze when this information of the updates come in. In fact, today only in the meeting we said to see that a project is not becoming sick. We will try and see on those parameters on which a project should move ahead. Projects which are supposed to be completed in the next 1 year or 2 years, are they moving on that track? On those parameters, is it moving ahead towards 100% or not? If it is not, how do we actually tell the Developers Association, here is one member of yours who is faltering, why don't you go to him and see what can be done to actually, or is he under really stress? He's not a delinquent. He's being pushed into that maybe from some delinquent in the planning authority. So these are the areas where we'll have to go into, certainly. And these are the challenges. Yes, please.
Yeah, please. Can you introduce yourself, please?
You have to be a little louder.
Sir, as you said, the developer can actually face some problems because we have seen, especially some of the examples. Some of the customers, they go and register, they pay the first installment, and they turn up later when the project is about to get completed. They don't even pay the installments.
No, he has defaulted. No? The developer can also become a complainant. The complaint is not only confined to only one person can complain. The developer also can complain that because that is a part of the duty of the consumer. If he doesn't pay, then he also is entitled to pay interest for the delayed amount of payment that he's making.
I'm asking because most of your acts are just customer-centric, like transparency, compliance, everything is...
No, it is not. On this front, it is not. This is very balanced. This is very balanced when it comes to how much of delayed interest the consumer will charge on the developer and the developer will charge on the consumer. It has been put at par. So I don't think it's a very balanced act.
I think there's transparency for both sides. There is compliance on both sides.
It is.
So if there is a schedule of payment, then if you don't comply, then obviously you get out of it. I mean, or whatever. There must be some this thing. So it's not transparency and compliance only applicable to the developer.
Fine.
It is on both sides, I guess. That's what. Any other question there? Sorry, I can't see you.
Government makes a lot of housing. Does that also come under RERA?
Yes, yes. All these housing which will now be done also by various urban local bodies under the PMAY, all those projects will have to be registered. MahaRERA has already registered. A lot of projects of MahaRERA are already out there. But all these other bodies like CIDCO, NIT and various municipal bodies also. So municipal bodies will have two wings. One is the authority which gives approval, that's the building proposal department. But then there will be an estate or some other wing which will carry out the works, which are affordable housing, which are meant for sale. They will also have to come and get registered.
Just a minute. Let me take one question at a time. I'll go in for a second round if there is time.
Yeah, I'm a Kamsha from Kamla Reheja. My question is that if the majority of our Mumbai's population lives in informal or inadequate housing, how is this act going to promote affordability for all?
No, this act is not for promoting affordability. This act will be for all types of housing when it comes up. They need to be regulated in a manner that they get completed in a reasonable amount of time. That's how it is. So it will be working in conjunction with various programs of the government which will promote affordable housing. Like the development plan of Mumbai has talked about a lot of areas which will be earmarked only for affordable housing. When that affordable housing area comes up with projects for affordable housing, all those projects will get registered with RERA, and then RERA will ensure that the affordable housing also gets completed in that reasonable period of time. So that's the relationship.
Any other questions?
Not satisfied.
Anybody else?
Do SRA projects... Sorry.
Wait a minute. I'm going to give you a sec. Wait a minute. I'm coming to you also. Yes, David.
Do SRA projects get covered?
I mentioned to you, SRA projects get covered because there is a free sale component.
Because they are...
So it is basically meant for those people who are putting in money to complete the project. It is meant for, the RERA Act is meant for people who are buyers. So when that project gets registered, obviously the buyer gets a timeline when his building will get completed. And that free sale component can be completed only when the rehab building gets completed. So willy-nilly the rehab component gets the benefit of that project. That's how it is. But the agreement to sale is what is signed with that buyer. His payouts are on basis of that agreement to sale. So everything in the act is meant for him. Yes.
I have a question, but I'll come to that a little later.
Yes,
in this
sir,
context.
you will have the final word.
Yes. Go ahead.
RERA, I have a follow-up on the completion of projects or the development of projects. As in, suppose a developer is not able to complete the project for any reason, he will be penalized and punished by RERA. But what happens to the consumers in that case?
I think I explained to you, na? The point is that if things go wrong, the developer puts his hands up, says I can't do anything, his project gets revoked, the right of first refusal is with the consumers. So obviously the consumers, there'll be something, some first mortgage on that project also, there'll be some lender in the project. So these are the areas of challenge which has to be met. And as I rightly said right in the beginning, that the one thing that we actually would pursue is to see that the project sees the light of the day and gets completed. Now, in order to complete the project, whatever efforts are required will have to be brought in. It will not be simple.
So does RERA follow up with the project's development stages?
RERA has given out a timeline. In that timeline, there are people who are affected. There are third-party interests created there. RERA is not possible to monitor 13,000 projects. We are working today on this reactive mode. In that project, there are people who are affected, who feel that the project timeline is getting over and nothing is happening. He will come to me and tell me, see, this is what has happened. Then we'll solve the problem.
Anybody else? Okay, yes.
The developer makes these very beautiful sample apartments. Does RERA have any take on that?
Yes, yes, certainly. The advertisement that he puts out in the brochure or wherever, if that is giving a misleading information, he gets penalized for that. That's covered in the Act.
So in terms of, I would say in terms of the finishes that they provide, does RERA kind of...
There is a 5-year defect liability period also. If something goes wrong up to 5 years, the person can come to RERA and say that this has gone wrong.
Anybody else?
Okay. Tired of asking questions. Yeah.
Question that, and this is more related to SRA. In SRA, I mean, what you're saying is that we are trying to protect those who are buying or paying to buy something. But end of the day, buying is also a transaction.
Sorry?
There is a transaction, there is a commitment. And in an SRA scheme, there is a transaction. There is no money. Because if you don't consider these dwelling units...
He's an allottee. The person in that SRA building is an allottee.
So is there a builder's commitment to him?
No. Point
to the allottee, because there is a transaction.
Let me explain this. This is a quasi-judicial body. It's not a high court where all the laws of the land, any law of the land gets violated. I can pass an order, I can tell him you deposit those 500 crores here and do that. I derive my power from the various provisions of this Act. So one will have to point out to me as to which provision of the Act is getting violated in the developer not providing rent to that slum dweller. That's not covered in the Act. But he's an allottee, all right. The allottee will get a home. The home's defect liability period will be covered. There are certain aspects of the Act which will get covered because he's an allottee. But all the other provisions are that how he should collect the money, what is the agreement he should sign, those agreements and the way he should collect the money is all covered towards that buyer. The disclosure norm applies to everybody because disclosure is for in the public domain. Everyone can see that. That's how it is. Not to say that they should not be. There maybe has to be a state act which then covers these people who are the tenants, who are the slum dwellers, who are cess building occupants. What about them? Because they are also taken for a ride by the developer. Now, certainly it should be done. But then this is just a beginning where you are trying to deal with people who have put in their hard-earned money and they are waiting for things to happen. So
yeah,
that's
also,
how it is.
Also the issue is that maybe you are kind of leaving out a large part of the community, through such a...
In Mumbai's context, maybe, yes.
Yes.
In Mumbai's context. But as I mentioned, the fringe benefit goes there because unless the money which has been paid by the free sale buyers comes in, the project doesn't get completed. Unless that person gets his home, the rehab component will not get completed. So when that building gets completed, the rehab building also will get completed. But then these arrangements which the developer has with the slum dweller or with the tenant, that I will pay you rent, I will do this. Now those are not covered under any provision of the Act. And therefore there will not be a violation of the Act where I can step in.
Right. So, I hope that... Okay, yes.
Includes?
Internal walls, right?
Internal walls, yes.
So how is it helpful to the consumer? Because the developer will always say, because as a layman...
Sorry?
As a layman, I don't know the technical aspects of the carpet area.
No, why should you not know? It's a diagram that has been put out in the public domain. Don't say that I am a layman. If you go into the diagram, it is so simple that it doesn't require an architect to explain the diagram. And the whole issue is that what is he charging for what should be equal for everybody. That's what it is. you can always say that it is not carpet area because the internal column you have also included, that you are charging me for that. That's not the point. Don't look at it from that point of view. Look at it that this person's way he is calculating, the other person is calculating is same. And therefore I am paying for you. Actually, you are paying for everything that is there. It's not that you are not paying for the column also. When you are charging him, the carpet area is the basis in which you are charging, but then the charging is for everything that is provided in that as an amenity. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Urban Development Research Institute and the Schools of Architecture, I would like to thank all schools and colleges of architecture who have supported this understanding of MahaRERA workshop. I'd like to extend a special gratitude to our main guest of this evening, Shri Gautam Chatterjee, the first chairperson of the Maharashtra RERA, for having given us his valuable time and invaluable insight into the nuance of the Act. Shri Chatterjee's expertise has allowed the audience, particularly students, to get an insight into the implications of this Act and in their profession. I would also like to thank the All India Institute of Local Self-Government for hosting this workshop and in this spacious venue. Last but definitely not the least, I would like to thank each and every one of you for attending this workshop and participating enthusiastically, and we hope to see you in our next event. Thank you so much.